You know, there's something strange about the human mind. We live inside it every day, but often it feels like we're living inside someone else's. And by that I mean this: so many of our decisions, our dreams, our actions are shaped not by what we actually want, but by what we think other people will think about it. That's the silent cage most of us carry, the prison of what will people say? It starts early. When we're kids, we want to draw something weird, wear something unusual, speak up in class, and someone laughs. We learn quickly. Being different can be dangerous, so we adjust. We learn to hide parts of ourselves, to say the right thing, to look the right way, to avoid the wrong reaction. And over the years, that small adjustment turns into a full-time job, managing other people's opinions of us. Here's the truth that stings. Most of the people whose opinions we fear aren't even thinking about us that much. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect, the tendency to overestimate how much people notice or care about what we do. We imagine there's a giant spotlight on us at all times, when in reality, everyone else is too busy worrying about their own spotlight. I want to tell you about a man named José Mujica. He's the former president of Uruguay, often called the world's poorest president. He lived in a modest farmhouse, drove an old Volkswagen Beetle, and gave away most of his salary to charity. When asked why he lived that way, instead of in a presidential mansion, he simply said, "It's a question of freedom. If you don't have many possessions, you don't have to spend your life looking after them. If you don't care what people think of your status, you can live the way you truly want." That's someone who stepped completely outside the prison of appearances. He didn't just talk about not caring what people think. He lived it. But most of us, we're still inside. And here's the most dangerous part. The prison of what will people say doesn't just make you careful, it makes you invisible. It keeps you from saying the thing you believe, from taking the risk that matters, from living the life that's actually yours. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, progress demands that you risk being misunderstood or judged, because if the only thing you ever say is what you know will be applauded, then you're not living, you're performing. Now, I get it. Breaking free from this fear isn't as easy as snapping your fingers. There's a reason it's so deeply rooted. From an evolutionary standpoint, being rejected by the group was once a death sentence. Our ancestors survived by being accepted in their tribe. And in modern life, rejection still feels dangerous, even if it's just someone making a snide comment online. So the question becomes, how do we step outside this ancient wiring without pretending it doesn't exist? The first step is awareness. You have to catch yourself in the act. When you hesitate before making a decision, ask, am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid of what someone will think? That single question can change the trajectory of your life. It shines a light on the hidden strings that pull at your choices. The second step is building what I call selective deafness. You can't ignore all opinions. Some feedback is valuable, but you have to decide whose voice actually matters. Imagine your mind as a radio station with dozens of channels. Most are just noise. Pick a small handful of people whose values align with yours, who want the best for you, and tune the rest out. It's not arrogance, it's self-preservation. The third step, and this is the hardest, is practicing being misunderstood. Yes, practicing. That might mean sharing a thought online that you know some people will disagree with, wearing something that feels like you, even if it's not in style, taking a job, or ending a relationship that others don't understand. The more you survive these small acts of judgment, the more you'll realize it can't actually kill you. And here's where the real shift happens. When you stop living for the imaginary approval of the crowd, you start hearing your own voice more clearly. You start making choices that are aligned with your own values, not the collective script. And that alignment, that's where real peace comes from. There's a metaphor I like to use here. Imagine you're on a stage, performing a play. The script was handed to you by your parents, your school, your culture. You've been reading those lines for years, and the audience claps when you get them right. But one day, you pause. You realize these lines aren't even yours. So you put down the script. The audience shifts uncomfortably. Some leave, but then you start speaking your own words, and suddenly, you're not acting anymore. You're living. That's the freedom we're talking about. It's not about being reckless or rejecting all norms just to be rebellious. It's about not outsourcing your life to an imaginary jury. Let's be honest. You can't control what people say about you. They'll talk if you fail. They'll talk if you succeed. They'll talk if you stand still. The point isn't to make them stop. The point is to make their noise irrelevant. I remember a friend who decided to leave a safe corporate job to start her own small bakery. Everyone warned her, "It's risky. You could lose everything. What will people say if it fails?" She opened anyway. The first year was hard, but she kept going. Now, years later, her bakery is a beloved spot in the community. And you know what? The same people who doubted her now say, "I always knew you'd make it." That's the thing about the "what will people say" crowd. They'll rewrite the story once you've succeeded, which means their opinion was never the truth to begin with. If there's one central message I want you to take from this first part, it's this. You get one life, and it is far too short to live as a supporting character in someone else's story. You know, there's one more truth we need to face before we end this conversation. No matter how much you try, you will never fully escape judgment. It's part of being human. The goal isn't to become bulletproof. It's to stop letting the bullets decide where you walk. If you live for applause, you'll die when it's silent. If you live for criticism, you'll hide when it's loud. But if you live for your own sense of purpose, then applause becomes a bonus, and criticism just becomes background noise. Think about it. The people you admire most, the ones whose names you remember, they weren't liked by everyone. They took risks. They stood out. They were willing to look foolish, to be doubted, to be misunderstood. And because they dared to live on their own terms, the world eventually respected them for it, even if that respect came late. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If you stopped caring about what they might say tomorrow, what would you start doing today? Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding, a project you've been hiding, a truth you've been swallowing. Whatever it is, give it life, because the world doesn't need another perfect performance. It needs more people willing to be real. And when the doubts come, remember this. Those voices in your head that sound like everyone else's, they're just echoes. And echoes only have power if you stop to listen. So walk out of the prison, leave the gate open, and start living like the jury has gone home, because in reality, they were never watching that closely in the first place. Your life is yours.